That's another loss for the Indiana Pacers. Tony East here, still in Atlanta after Pacers-Hawks round 2. Got to talk a little quieter for today's post-game recap. I do have one of those hotels with shared rooms with the wall, with the doors on the side. So can't be talking too loud, won't be too animated, but a lot to discuss as the Pacers come to Atlanta and get swept in this 2-game set by the Hawks. A lot of similarities between the games. Tight late, Pacers struggling then, but the standout difference today in this second game that just wrapped up a couple hours ago was the start of the game. The Pacers were winning after one quarter on Thursday. One of many things that had it carried over from just 2 days ago would have led to a Pacers victory today. Instead, dreadful first quarter for the Pacers, down 39-19 after 12 minutes of action. And it's hard to point to anything that went well in that frame. Trae Young made more shots than the Pacers in the first half of this game by himself. The Hawks star was brilliant. In this 2-game set, he set the tone early. He was scoring, shooting, setting up his teammates very effectively. And on the defensive end, the Hawks were pretty good. They were trying to wall off the paint the same way they were trying to get into the paint. And the Pacers, without Tyrese Halliburton, are just trying to be a little more creative with their offense, right? We heard from Pascal Siakam on Thursday talking about how he thought the Pacers needed to get more feet in the paint, 2 feet in the paint on their drives to set stuff up. They had a lot of possessions where they were just passing around the perimeter, getting the elbow, reset, nothing really developed. And it felt like that would be an early focus in this game, and it wasn't. And it really sunk the Pacers. They won the rest of the game by 18 points, but they were just so dreadful to start. And it was really the last half of the first quarter, which revealed some cracks in the Pacers in this game. But the thing that stood out early, they started Ben Shepherd again, with Halliburton out, so he's the 2/3, whatever you want to call it. That was a head scratcher to me. I actually thought last game, Thursday, Ben Shepherd would start with Mathurin out and Halliburton out. We've seen Shepherd start in that spot before, including in the postseason last year in the conference finals. Instead, they went to Jarris Walker. But then Ben Mathurin returned today, and I thought, okay, it's going to be Ben Mathurin starting at that 2 spot between Nembhard and Nesmith, and it wasn't. It was Ben Shepherd. So that was already perplexing to me. And then he was the primary guy trying to contain Trae Young early. And Ben Shepherd's a decent to good defender, but that was not what he needed to be doing in this game. Andrew Nembhard would have been the best option, but he was the guy running the show most of the time. They needed his energy for offense in some ways, and he could still try to be disruptive guarding Dyson Daniels, which didn't really take a hold till the second half. And then, they tried other stuff on Trae Young, but that early stint from Shepherd was not very good. In that way, they subbed in Ben Mathurin early, and Mathurin started the second half. Mathurin defended Trae Young better than Ben Shepherd. He had a good on-ball game. Nesmith and Mathurin were the best 2 defenders of Trae Young in this game. So that's where a lot went sideways, was that early. That wasn't the only reason. The Pacers had a bad first quarter. Again, the paint pressure was part of it. Their own defensive issues were part of it. Their offensive rebounding stunk again in this game, but they blinked and they were down 20. And again, they figured it out. Rick Carlisle said they were pissed off after that start. He was much more colorful with his language when he said it, and they turned things around. The second quarter starts, and a key thing that happened in the first quarter was TJ McConnell got hurt. Like his first possession in, he only played for about 20 seconds. And so Quentin Jackson has to be the backup point guard. No Halliburton, no McConnell. Ray J. Dennis was inactive. And Quentin Jackson was great. He boosted the energy immediately. The Pacers kind of just slowly chipped at the 20-point lead. Suddenly it was 13, and then it was 10, and then it was 7, and then it went back up to 14, but then they got it to 6, and then they actually retook the lead in the fourth quarter. They played really well for the rest of the game, but the hole was so big that even when they tied it and took a 2-point lead in the fourth quarter, just one more surge from the Hawks was enough for Atlanta to win. And they scored 7 very quick points with about 5 minutes to go in the game. The Pacers only answered with 2, and that 4-point deficit was too much for the Pacers to close with in the game. A lot of blunders for the Pacers late, too, that had me scratching my head. They were down 2 with the ball with about 30 seconds to go, so a chance to do something. And Miles Turner got fouled. That's good for the Pacers. And then a series of self-inflicted errors for the Pacers, starting with Miles Turner missing a free throw. That would have tied the game at 117 after he made the first. That hurts. But the Pacers are lucky that on the second one, which was a miss, in the fight for the rebound, the Hawks hit it out of bounds. So the Pacers are now down 1, and they have the ball, and the shot clock is off. Great news. They can go for the last shot. They instead decided to go quickly for an attack at the rim, And Ben Mathurin, who was wonderful, we'll talk about him to close this out, got to the basket and took a shot that I would say he makes about 70% of the time. It was a pretty good look. It wasn't like wide open, but it was a good look for a guy who's been cooking that game. Just left it a bit short, right? So far they've missed a free throw and missed a shot. The real question I had about that shot, and it's so easy to say this in hindsight because he missed, is why the Pacers went early on that play. Had they scored, no one would be asking that question, right? So it's all about the result. But they could have had the last shot, and given the way the rest of the game went, the odds of making one shot to win it or what they had at the end mattered. So two things already that they probably are thinking about as the day goes on. Then the Pacers are on defense. They're down 1. They need to get a stop. And the Hawks give the Pacers a gift. They throw it into the corner to Onyeka Okongwu. They couldn't get it into Trae Young on the inbounds. And the Pacers opt to trap him and try to force a turnover instead of fouling. But the Hawks had a timeout. They call a timeout, resets the play, and then they get it into Trae Young instead, who made both. Had they fouled Okongwu, given his free throw percentage, would have been about a 50-50 chance he makes both. For Trae Young, it's closer to 80-20. That hurt the Pacers. Then there's down 3 with the ball. The Hawks don't foul. And Pascal Siakam, inexplicably, while trapped, he even just called it a mistake after the game. Just drives to the rim and dunks with about a second to go. And then the Pacers lost by 2 points. Just a brutal game. Their first 12 minutes, terrible. Really, the last 6 minutes of the first quarter were bad. And their last about 5 minutes were, You could say for the rest of the game, the Pacers were not just better, but much better. But they were so bad in their low moments that they still lost. And on a night where the two teams closest to them in their standings race, the Pistons and the Bucks, lost, they gave one away that they felt like they could have won. Dreadful trip to Atlanta. They had opposite problems in the games. Siakam was great and then not as good. The bench was awful Thursday and then better, but too little too late. And Mathurin was great, but he didn't play in the game that he would have won them if he played. And the game they started well, they didn't close well. And the game they didn't start well, they were great until the close. They put enough together to show they could beat the Hawks without Tyrese Halliburton. But they didn't. They didn't. 2 of their 3 losses in 2025 in a game during which they held a fourth quarter leader in the last 9 days. Pacers have got to start winning some late ones, and they'll hope to get Halliburton back for a very key week of games. The good positive story for the Pacers in this game, Ben Mathurin returned and was exceptional. 30 points, 8 rebounds, 5 very clean assists. He looked very comfortable right away. Got to his spots in the lane. He didn't finish twos very well, but he drew a lot of fouls. He made a lot of key jumpers. His defense, like I mentioned, on Trae Young was very good. For a Pacers bench that's been really struggling of late, that was by far the most significant positive development in this game. And he had a chance to have a game winner, which would have made this one of the more signature games of his career. But he seems healthy. He played almost 40 minutes. He scored a bunch of points. He played good defense. Would have been the story of the game had they won. Alas, they lost. You can hear much more on Locked On Pacers and all of a story from Atlanta and Forbes pretty soon. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on Monday after Pacers Bulls.